You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 334. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, author of How to Get On Podcasts, the podcast matchmaker, and CEO and founder of the MLG Collective. I'm excited to share the stories and life lessons of changemakers and authors with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and today one of my summer reads, Our Last Resort. I am interviewing Clémence, I think I said that right, it sounds so good, Michallon, who wrote her sophomore novel, Our Last Resort, which is kind of White Lotus-y thriller. There's murder, there's cult. It was so good. And Clémence showed up in her signature red lip for our interview. Such a fun conversation. I know you are going to enjoy it too. Hello, Clémence.
Hi, Michelle. Thank
And
you
I
for
said it
having
right?
me.
Did I say it right that time?
You did. You said it perfectly.
Amazing. I am so excited to talk to you.
Likewise, the feeling is mutual. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you. And I'm so excited that you showed up with your signature red lip.
I wouldn't never leave it behind.
A little birdie named Kathleen told me about the signature red lip, and I was like, I really hope that you show up today with it. I am one of those people who I never wear makeup unless I'm going out somewhere. And there's a part of me that's a little jealous of the red lip wearers, the ones who are like, here I am, bold. And I'm going, I don't even own red lipstick. So
So I'm wearing more makeup than I usually would because I'm on camera, and like my eyelashes, if I don't do something, they just don't show up. Like it's just something. But usually the thing with the red lip is it's pretty much all I have to wear. And then, a little swipe of mascara and I'm out the door, which is what I like about it. It's actually surprisingly low maintenance.
I love it. I love it. Before we go too further in, can you take a moment to introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Yes, of course. So I'm Clémence. I'm an author of crime fiction, and my new novel is called Our Last Resort.
Out
And
today,
it's out
because today
today.
is pub day. We're
Today's
recording
pub
early,
day.
but today it is.
I feel like I just time traveled. um, so it's out today at Knopf, and it's my second thriller. My previous one was called The Quiet Tenant, and it came out in June 2023.
I enjoyed it so much. It was it. So first off, I'm not like a crime thriller. Like part of that, I don't know. And I was explaining to my daughter last night. She's 9, and I told her I was interviewing you, and I said, it was a thriller book, and she went, "Really? Was it scary?" And I go, like it wasn't scary. And I think that I put in my head that thrillers are going to scare me, and so I should stay away from them. I said, no, it was more like a whodunit. And it was a
Mm-hmm.
mystery type of thriller that didn't make me lose sleep at night, which I appreciated.
That's great. That makes me very happy to hear. That was my hope with this book. It was to kind of give something that would hopefully get under people's skin in a way, but without giving them nightmares.
Yes, I loved that there was a cult aspect to it.
Oh my goodness. Yes. We
Oh,
can talk more about that.
yes, because I want to know how you came up with that. And when I first posted that I was reading it, my friend Helia, who is a bookstagrammer, has already read it. And she goes, Did you get to all the cult parts? Because that was so great.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was a trip. So for people who haven't read it yet, because it is pub day, so most people hopefully will not have read it yet. Our Last Resort tells the story of Frida and Gabriel, who are two people who travel to this beautiful hotel in the desert in Utah to try to mend their sibling relationship. And everything is going okay, not perfectly well, but well enough, until a few days into their stay, a female guest turns up dead, evidently murdered. And the murder investigation is going to quickly focus on Gabriel because it's not the first time a woman has died in his orbit. And this murder investigation is going to force Gabriel and Frida to confront some secrets from their past, which they were hoping to keep hidden. And their past is very particular because, as you just mentioned, Michelle, Gabriel and Frida grew up in a cult together, and oh, I'm sorry, that's my dog barking. She's also very interested in cults. She's trying to start one, actually. They grew up in a cult together, and it created this sort of really special, deep, dysfunctional bond between them. The novel is told in two timelines: the contemporary timelines of the murder mystery in the hotel, and then the timeline that tells the story of their past in the cult. And that timeline spans years.
How did you research cult life? Let's talk about that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So I have always been somewhat captivated with cults. Sorry, I think my dog is going to have to come on my lap. Otherwise, she is not going to stop barking. Come on. There you go. There you go. Now she's fine.
She
Um,
looks like my dog. Mine will not be coming in. Oh, she looks just like her. Oh,
really?
that is crazy. Yes, mine is Norma Desmond Tutu. They look identical.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So this is Claudine, and she likes to crash my interviews. And now she's like gently groaning. I don't know what's going on in this little head. We were trying to talk about cults and how I research them. So I've always been really captivated with cults. I found out about cults when I was a kid. I grew up in France, and I stumbled upon one day a TV segment, and it was a 60 Minutes type of thing
Mhm.
about cults. And I had the same reaction to cults as I did to serial killers, which was, oh my God, it had never occurred to me that something like this could be real, like could exist in the world. But on the other hand, it felt like a natural sort of anomalous output of our society. And so, what I find really interesting with cults is that they put a predatory spin on something we're all involved in, which is the idea that we have to live together. We have to live it in the collective. And it's really hard to do. And cults use that to prey on people. In terms of research, there was one cult that surfaced a lot because of this weird personal connection I have to it, which is not what it sounds like. But you might remember Nexium, which was that cult in upstate New York, led by a man called Keith Raniere. And it's mainly remembered as the cult where some women had a brand put on them, like with like
Mhm.
a cauterizing tool. My husband, the sentence does not end the way you think, but my husband was a public information officer for the prosecutor's office during the federal prosecution of Keith Raniere. And so the case ended up taking a lot of room in my household because for weeks, my husband was in the courtroom where this was all playing out. And so it really just was on my mind. And so I watched both seasons of the documentary The Vow, which was about Nexium, and I read some books. And this all caused me to revisit some other cults that I had heard about before. I'm from France. We also have a thing with cults there. And I will say that the cult in our last resort is not based on just one existing cult. It's more of something I created by sort of borrowing from various real life cults I'd heard about. Similarly to The Quiet Tenant, my previous book is a serial killer book. And I didn't want people to look at the serial killer in my book and say, oh, it's obviously meant to be so and
Mhm.
so. The cult worked the same way for me. I wanted it to be a little bit particular.
It's so fascinating, and we're not gonna give spoilers, I keep saying that, but I feel like you could have a whole other book after this one because I wanna know what happens to every cult member.
Yes, maybe like a novella or something. There's certainly something
Yes.
there. I'm also always very interested in how cults even start, you know?
Yes, how do you
So,
get, especially if you are an not somebody who's born into it, but somebody who's established in life, you have gotten at least to the age of 18, 20. Some of these people were way older than that, and then you suddenly go, "Oh, everything that I know and I believe is wrong. I'm gonna go follow this man, and
yes,
he's gonna tell me what to do." And, like, I don't understand and that many people. Like, it's not a
yes.
one-off, it's so many people.
Yes. And what I find the most jarring with cults is that the qualities that they prey on are usually good qualities in people, right? It's people who end up falling victims to cults are people who want something to believe in,
Mm.
who tend to be quite existential, to ask themselves questions about the world and how they exist in it, and values, and they want to do good, and they think they are. And cults completely manipulate those better instincts, which I think is tragic.
Yeah. So tell me more also about how you come into all of the murder stuff. Like
Yes.
you look like such a nice woman. And you're writing
Well,
about cults and murder and
yes. Well, so I was in the crime space following my first book, which being a serial killer story was very much a crime novel. I love crime books, right? I read them. I consume true crime. I love crime stories. I think they are particularly just interesting and captivating, and they just take a hold on me. And this particular one with the murder in the hotel came to me when I was trying to figure out what to write next, opening my head to ideas. And I will say, I never write down ideas for novels that I might want to write, because the ones that are good enough are the ones that I don't need to write down in order to remember them, right? Like
yeah.
the ones you need to write are the ones that will stay in your head no matter what. So I started thinking, well, my previous book, The Quiet Tenant, is set in upstate New York in the winter and in the fall. So it's always very cold in that book. There's, everything's icy or covered in snow. It's dark. The settings are very simple, very bare. There's a garden shed, a house, and a restaurant, and that's it. And I thought, well, I want to do something different for the next one. I want to go somewhere hot, warm, aspirational, beautiful, but also menacing. And my mind traveled back to this beautiful hotel that I went 2 years ago in the desert in Utah. And I remembered two things about it. It was one, that it was one of the most beautiful places I have ever seen in my life. Two, that it was incredibly isolated in a way that felt menacing. And just, there was so much about it that lent itself to a crime novel, because it was a place where, if you wanted to make a quick exit, you couldn't.
Mm.
You're in the middle of the desert. The environment around you is incredibly inhospitable. Even though you are yourself in this beautiful environment where your needs are being met and you're being taken care of, around you is very hostile. It's hot, it's dry, there's coyotes, and I thought, well, that's amazing. There was something really fascinating to me in this contrast. So then I thought, well, what if it were a murder story? What if someone died in this hotel? But it has to mean something to the people who are there. Well, the question I like to explore in my work is, how much do we ever really know about the people we love?
Mm.
And so that's how I ended up thinking, well, what if this pair of siblings go to the hotel and one of them was accused before? And what if this sort of revives these accusations? Then people have to wonder, what is this person I love really capable of?
And you mentioned the coyotes, and a coyote plays quite a significant role in this book, which is also fascinating to me because there were parts where I'm like, "Girl, get away from that coyote. What are you doing? Like, why do you keep going to go help the coyote?" And the coyote continues throughout the book to
Yes.
play a big role, even to the end.
Yes. I love putting one animal in my book that like ends up playing a part. I don't know why. I think there's something a little magical about it. Like spirit of the like kind of just the natural world playing a part in a story. It was also a way to pay tribute to Claudine. Having some kind of canine in the story was important to me. But also, I think you can tell a lot about a person based on the way they treat animals.
Mhm.
And I thought it was interesting to see Frida being so caring of, because there's an injured coyote and she tries to get help for it and she feeds it snacks even though you're not supposed to feed wildlife. But she just can't help herself. She sees an animal that is suffering and she just needs to help. And that was a way to explore her character. What
Mm,
does she do when confronted with someone else? Something else is suffering. And also, how is she about rules? When does she decide to break them?
yeah. Yeah. I love that. You mentioned that you are from France and you barely have an accent, like, at all. And that's the reason I don't know French. I took 3 years of German and no, 4 years, and I can't, no, I've got nothing. But my husband has been trying to learn French on Duolingo. You learned English a whole other way.
That's right. Well, there were a few things. First, there was obviously I started in the classroom and I went to English language summer camp. And then, like every foreign kids of my generation, I watched Friends. And a lot of it came from television. But what really got me over the final hurdles of learning English and of sort of sounding like a native speaker was YouTube makeup tutorials. um, because think about it. It was the late 2000s, early 2010s. And if you were a French person wanting to hear English, um, well, you can watch TV, but that's scripted.
Hmm.
I mean, if you can watch reality TV, I suppose, but this was like the early days of streaming. It wasn't that readily available. And in France, that would be dubbed over. So you can't really hear it. But suddenly, here was this completely untapped source of native speakers speaking for two native speakers, right? Like that was the intended audience. And using all the mannerisms, the and the like and the and the like, and even
All the
just
annoying
the
stuff.
well, the things that make someone sound natural.
Hmm.
And I mean, I didn't start watching them looking for like language tips. I wanted makeup tips. And I thought it was just very fascinating. But then I watched hours and hours and hours of them. And they really helped me in terms of fluency.
I love
Isn't that
that. So,
funny?
how old were you when you came to America?
Let's see, I came to America in July of 2014. So I was 22.
Okay.
I was about to turn 23. So
See, and I would think that you'd still have an accent. My mom has been here she came from Switzerland, and oh my gosh, she's got to be here for 40 plus years, and yet she still has an accent.
yeah, yeah, no, I know it's a weird thing. I don't know exactly what happened, but if you were to catch me if I'm really tired or stressed or confused for any reason, then the accent kind of makes a slight, you know, comeback.
I love it. I love it. Share with us about what you did before you were an author, because you're a journalist
Yes,
by trade, right?
absolutely. I'm a journalist by trade. I was most recently an entertainment writer. And then actually my most recent title was a people writer, which just meant that like I got to talk to a lot of really interesting people. I spoke to like a flight attendant who had saved a whole plane when this man known only as DB Cooper ended up on the plane, and he said he had a bomb and they had to this was ages and ages ago, but the DB Cooper case is still something that like intrigues people online. Or I spoke to a woman who helped law enforcement catch her coworker who was a nurse who was murdering patients, and she like wore a wire to confront him. So it was a really interesting job, and I actually love journalism. It's a job I really enjoy. But as the books started taking up more of my time, trying to do everything at once just meant that nothing was fun, you
Yeah.
know. And so I went freelance a bit more than a year ago as a journalist, and it is better in terms of managing my schedule, my time.
Do you find that any of these conversations and getting to know these people have kind of seeped into the characters of your book?
Well, I try to never borrow anything directly because it would feel really weird, right? Like speak to me as a journalist, they don't expect me to then borrow stuff,
Sure.
wholesale. But it is a way to just have all these stories in my head and to understand how things happen to people and how people react. right? Like it's a way to just, it's a reminder that these things, whenever spectacular headline making things happen, they happen to real people who still have to deal with real life every day. That's the part that always fascinates me, you know? You find out your dad is a serial killer, taxes are still due this year. Like you still have to go see your accountant. Isn't that weird? Like the world doesn't stop when that
Yes.
stuff happens, you know?
I love that. That's gotta be a clip. That is yes, that's the truth. Like, it doesn't stop.
It doesn't, and that is something that I keep going back to whenever I'm working on a book. It's just this complete, I can't wrap my head around it. This sort of the conjunction of extraordinary circumstances and just the complete demands of normal life continue. Um, it does, in terms of building my characters and stuff. I do think that journalism, well done, when done well, is a profession that demands empathy from you. You know, you
Mhm.
can't really interview somebody unless it's an elected official, then the rules are different. But when you're interviewing an individual who is sharing their story with you, and usually it's going to be about a big moment in their life, good or bad, there's a lot of trust involved, and people surprise you all the time. And you have to have empathy for them in order to do this job. And I always try to bring that to my characters as well. And especially in the crime world, you know, you can't have sympathy for all of your characters, but
Yeah.
empathy is different.
I love that, and it's funny that you mentioned the elected officials because I'm trying to interview more of them, and I don't wanna hear the issues, and my whole, like, pitch to any elected official is, I wanna get to know you as a human so we can invest in you, so we can actually have empathy because
Yes.
we we have none because you have none for us right now. That's how it
Right.
feels.
Yes. Exactly. And you know, it's interesting. I always say people surprise you, and that is something that I try to bear in mind. So the moment that I keep coming back to is one day I interviewed a woman who was wonderful, and she was the daughter of a man who, as a boy, had been kidnapped and kept captive for a number of years, and he had escaped with another victim. He had brought him with him, and so she was this man's daughter. And there was a documentary. The man is named Steven Stainer, and she was his daughter. And I said, you know, how do you feel about true crime? Because her family life had really been impacted by it. First with her father, then her uncle turned out to be a serial murderer. So they had been the subject of a lot of true
Goodness.
crime material. And I asked this question thinking, surely she's going to tell me that it's exhausting and she hates it, right? And she said, oh, I love it. I love watching it. I watch it all the time. And I said, why? And she said, you know, I like trying to guess who did the crime, and I just get really hooked on it. And I was like, oh, we're the same, actually. You know, like there's not a big separate category for people who went through that stuff, and then the rest of the world. We're all people. We're all people all the time. That's the big lesson.
But then it makes you wonder, did she realize that her uncle was a serial
Oh,
killer
she
if she
knew.
oh,
I
she
mean,
knew?
she knew at the
Oh,
time of the interview. I mean,
no, but I mean, like, leading up to it, if she's watching so much of it and you see it going around, like, was there any inclination of, "Hmm, what's going on in my family?"
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, no. When I said she knew, I meant by the time we spoke.
Yeah.
I no, I don't think she. I don't think she had any inkling at all. She was very young when that happened. So
But that's crazy. That's a lot of things to happen in one family.
yes, no, it was a wild story. Yeah.
But to tie it back into your book, I felt like there was also a lot that happened within the book, like, to these 2 characters. I kept going, "Are you serious? Like, really? Another one? Like, come on, get a the guy can't catch a break. Poor
Yeah.
Gabriel." Like
Yeah, I know. There's a lot that happens to. I know they go through a lot of things. These two, but that's the problem. What I find fascinating is that the characters in a crime novel don't know they live in a crime novel, you know? So it's still a surprise to them when something else bad happens, and when things get worse, and when there's more crime. And it's interesting because it's I think there's a contradiction there, because the reader knows that they are reading a crime novel, and so they can tell when a character is doing something that is ill-advised in the context of living in a crime novel. But the characters don't know. So they get to do what anyone would do in those circumstances. They get to do the most intuitive thing.
And I absolutely loved where you went with it because I was completely shocked. I'm reading through and I'm like, I think I get it. Like obviously I'm not enough into true crime to be like, no, that is not what is going to happen. What you think it's going to be something different. I was shook. I went, did not see that coming.
Thank
So
you.
you
I'm
did
glad.
good.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that because this is a part that I find very difficult as a writer. I'm not alone. Like most people find it hard because we know everything for so long, right? It's very hard to judge misdirection, red herrings, suspense, tension, and all that stuff. Like I always feel like everything is very obvious, but obviously it's just because I'm seeing it from the inside. So you really need to rely on your editor and your readers to kind of tell you how that stuff is working out. So I'm glad it worked for you.
It did. It did. How did you plan it out as you got the idea? You've been to this resort. You were fascinated with cults and you'd done your research, but how is it that you pinpointed like this is what's going to happen and then we're going to flash back? And did you write it in the order that it was in, or did you write the cult stuff separately? What did that process look like?
So I do write in sequence. So I do write in the order that the reader is going to read it. The reason for that is I always feel like I need to keep track of disclosure, right? Of what I've said when, and also just when it just gives me a sense of what do we need to hear now. It just allows the story to grow organically. Um, so how did I build it up? I don't outline per se. So I don't write a detailed synopsis or anything. But before I go in, I usually have an idea, obviously, of how things are going to start in terms of what is the inciting incident and how it's going to end. By which I mean which character is going to prevail emotionally. It doesn't necessarily mean that I know plot-wise exactly how that's going to shake out, but who's going to prevail emotionally, who's going to learn what, how are they going to be different in the end, um, what sort of fundamental quality about them is about to shift. Those are things I tend to know going in, and it guides me as I try to figure it out painfully and imperfectly. So I do a first draft and then I just revise the hell out of it because not everything always makes sense in the first draft, and it takes a few drafts to get to where it needs to be. There is actually some prep work I do to do the things I just mentioned, like figuring out what the characters will learn, etc. I use a craft book. I have it on my desk right now called Story Genius. Oh, it's too late. There you go.
I see it. Yep.
By
I've
Lisa
seen that
Stern.
before.
Yeah, it's the book that helped me learn what story is and how it works and what characters are like, and I go back to it all the time. Now, I think craft books are like workouts. You just have to find the one that works for you.
Mhm.
So just because I like this one doesn't mean it's going to be for everybody. But there is probably one craft book out there that will speak to, to
Yeah.
you, writer, if you're listening. So just find yours. It helps.
How was it different from your debut to now being your sophomore novel? Did you feel I've now interviewed, I think you're my third one like in a row almost of sophomore novels coming out, and that pressure of will it be as good as the debut, having to do it all over again. What has that been like for you?
Yeah, I mean it's certainly interesting. The second novel is the first one you write with, like, metaphorically speaking, people in the room with you. Um, so, but it's also the first time you get to lean on your agent and your editor from earlier on in the process. So you do feel less alone with it. Um, but there were so many like unexpected things that I couldn't have guessed. So for example, it's the first book you write with the previous one before. And so I'd be like, have I already used this metaphor? Like, you know, or, you can't name a character or anything that is too obviously like the previous ones, and they have to look different, they have to feel different. It's funny because you are trying to do something that is still yours, but you really do need to try to change it up a little. And that's an interesting exercise. Where I land always, I think, as a writer is I always want to learn something new with everything I write. I want to stretch myself. I want to try different things because I think that's how you keep growing. I think that is how you make sure that your time is well spent because it will inform your future books as well. So in this one, I wanted to try to do dual timelines because my previous one was multiple points of view. So that was my challenge, and it was very interesting.
I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's got the White Lotus vibes, which I'm obsessed with. So you hit it out of the park. I congratulations.
Thank
Um,
you. I
Everybody should
appreciate
go
that.
read it because you won't get scared, but you will be entertained.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That
Where
makes
can
me
everybody find you? And obviously, they can get the book everywhere the book is sold, but where can they find you and connect with you?
So I am on Instagram at ClémenceMichallon.com. No, I am on Instagram at just Clémence Michallon. There's no .com. Clémence is Clemence. My last name is Michallon. I also have a newsletter, which I need to update as we're recording this. ClémenceMichallon.substack.com. And I do have an author website if you just want to see what I've been up to and read my journalism. And it's ClémenceMichallon.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you so much again, Michelle. This was so fun.
Okay, if you are a true crime junkie, if you like thrillers, you like cults, definitely go pick up Our Last Resort. I really enjoyed this. I flew through it and it was such a great read, such a great whodunit. I didn't know as I shared. So I loved the surprises and I loved hearing from Clemence how she wrote this book, how she did her research, how her husband played a role. It was so much fun to get to hear her story and how this book came to life. Happy Pub Day, and make sure you add this to your TBR.